talking about our soul's call, and hopefully this will work long enough to read it. So, go back. I'm going to stick with the first slide right here. And so, this month of June, we've been talking about the soul's call, and yes, and what's evolution without love is the topic for today. And it's the love that gives us that relaxed feeling of knowing that everything's okay, even though it's kind of in the middle of chaos, because, isn't life kind of chaotic? It's hot outside today, but, we're in here together, we're cool, we have on our warm clothing for hot weather instead of all of our snow gear, right? So it's, we flex, we can do it all. And so we're putting love into action, right? That's part of what we're doing. And putting the vision into action as well. Our vision, embracing all without it and serving with love while awakening to the one. So we're putting that love, it's not just that it's the spiritual experience, but it's also putting it into action with that love, right? And each one of us individually is called to evolve to a more perfect expression of that perfect divine love as us, towards the essence of who we are, and expressing that divine intention, not only as individuals, but collectively as a spiritual community, and as a planet, really, right? And so all of us, every person, every living creature, all of creation, are a part of that one life that we call God. The Spirit, the One, the infinite life force, the omnipresence. Now, the nature of God is love. We have all been created in the image and likeness of God, which means that we are love, right? That is where we begin, and that is where we are seeking to end. God has created us from itself in order to express itself, right? The Ernest Holmes puts it this way in the Science of Mind textbook. Love is self-givingness through creation, the impartation of the divine through the human. At his Last Supper with his disciples, Jesus told them, "So now I am giving you a new commandment. Love each other. Just as I have loved you, you should love each other. Your love for one another will prove to the world that you are my disciples." Jesus was asking his closest followers, as disciples, to follow his teaching of love and to transmit it to others, right? This was their calling, to express that truth that was the truth of their being, the creation of that one life force that we call God, as love in each and every one of us. Now, when we think about Father's Day, we're thinking about putting love into action, right? Ernest Holmes put it this way: love is the impulse, law is the way. Our fathers expressed their love with that masculine energy of power and strong support, protection and guidance, right? And wisdom. That is how they express love. And like all human beings, our fathers, probably each of them have their own challenges, some more than others, but they were loving us the best they knew how to do, right? And on Father's Day, we express our gratitude, love and recognition for our Father's gifts of love, that love that lasts forever, right? If we are on this plane or the next, love is always there. And if they're here with us, we can tell them, "I love you," and express that gratitude. Spend some happy time with them, as Michael, my husband Michael, is with his sons today. And if they've already passed on to the next plane, well, then we can still give gratitude to their spirit and to all fathers, right? Now, I have to give you a little history of Father's Day. It started as an effort by a woman named Sonora Smart Dodd in Spokane, Washington, to honor her dad. Now, she sat in church on Mother's Day in 1909, and they were talking about, it was a sermon on Mother's Day, and she thought, my dad deserves to be honored just like mothers. And so her dad, William Jackson Smart, was twice married, twice widowed. He was a Civil War veteran and a father of 14 children from all those marriages. And so when his second wife died, he still had 6 children living at home. So as a single dad, In whenever it was, back in the late 1800s, he raised them as a devoted and selfless single dad. Right? And so, to honor his memories, Sonora dedicated her life to the creation of Father's Day. Father's Day was first celebrated in Spokane, Washington, a year later, 1910, but it was not until 1972, 6 years before Sonora died at age 96, that President Richard Nixon signed a congressional resolution designating the third Sunday in June as Father's Day. And so we're celebrating that today. So in honor of all you fathers, we would like you to all stand up so we can express for you, thank you for your love and devotion. And you'll be representing all those fathers wherever they are. So thank you for being here. Yep, Rod. Thank you, Rod. And so it's much easier to talk about love than it is to actually reach out and love someone and support them through all of life's issues. Right? There's the great ones and the challenging ones. Right? But learning to love is one of our best teachers. We have to discover who we are. We learn that we are expressing God's love. Right? Even more fundamentally, we learn that we are a part of that one unity, that one life that is God, and expressing itself in and through us and all people. This is our evolution. Love is the bond that brings us together to remember that essential unity. Ernest Holmes said, evolution is the awakening of the soul to a recognition of its unity with the whole. He also said the aim of evolution is to produce a human who, as the point of his objective thought, may completely manifest the whole idea of life, may bring unity to the point of particularization, finding nothing in the law to oppose it. Now, the universe is always creating, right? Whatever we set as our intention, consciously or unconsciously, the universe is happy to create it for us, right? But through evolution, it seeks to express its true nature of love more and more perfectly. When we learn to give of ourselves selflessly, to love and support someone else, we learn to let go of our ego and sense that presence of God within us and within that other person in all we do. And similarly, when someone else loves and supports us and stands by our side as we go through crisis and loss, we experience that love of God enfolding us, the love of that universal love that surrounds and folds us and protects us all. So we give and receive love. When we love, our conscious awareness is raised to these higher levels of consciousness towards the oneness, awareness of that truth. Now, in the reading we had this morning, I love this love chapter, and it's some of the parts of it that Carol read for us this morning. If I am without love, I am a sounding gong or a clanging cymbal. I may have faith strong enough to move mountains, but if I have no love, I am nothing. And at the end, there are three things that last forever: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Right? Love is the most important thing in life. Now, somebody you wouldn't necessarily think of when you think of love is Warren Buffett. He's the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, one of the most successful investors in the world, and this year he is the sixth most richest person in the world. And he thinks that there are three things in life that separate the winners from the losers. Right, so this is the Buffett formula from his biography. Number one, build up your knowledge, one day at a time. Go to bed a little bit smarter every day. Read or whatever you do, a little bit smarter. Second, don't compromise your integrity. Right? It is necessary to have integrity to gain and maintain a good reputation. Now, three is more surprising. The ultimate test of how you have lived your life is how many of the people you want to love actually loved you. The more love you give away, the more love you get. Pretty simple, right? So Buffett knows that love is the real currency of life. It's not how many dollars he has in the bank or invested. It's the love that he has in his life that he gives and receives. So here's another example of how practicing love causes us to evolve. This year, our country is celebrating Juneteenth as a national holiday for the first time. All right? Now, this holiday reminds us that if we're going to do more than just talk about love, we need to go beyond our limited, selfish perspective if we are to love all people. Right? Although President Lincoln had issued the Emancipation Proclamation that freed all slaves as of January 1st, 1863, it was not until June 19th, 1865, 2.5 years later, when the Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, it had been a borderline state, right? That the 250,000 people that had been enslaved in Texas knew that they were free. And so it is celebrated, and it's continuing to be remembered. And that is their July 4th equivalent, when they were actually free. But this is also when that divine love was actually manifested so that our fellow human beings could actually receive that love and rejoice in their freedom as their own birthright. Okay? Remembering that we failed as a country to share that infinite divine love as every person's birthright is a powerful step forward for a nation. Now, we've still got a long ways to go, but it is one step. It is one step. But our goal in evolution is to love our fellow human beings. It is our soul's call. Right? And as we evolve individually to express more and more of God's love, we evolve as a community, as a nation, as a planet, to express that love more perfectly. And so don't lose, whatever's going on at the surface, don't lose that time to see that spiritual truth underneath. What we control is what? Our part in it. And our part is as important as anyone else's part in that transition. Now, another person who stood up for love is Fannie Lou Hamer. She was a black woman. She believed that nobody's free until we are all free. Now, she was born in 1917 as the youngest of 20 children in a Mississippi Delta sharecroppers family. And by the age of 6, she had joined her family picking cotton in the fields. At age 12, she quit school to go to work, right, and help support the family. At age 27, she finally married, and the couple worked as sharecroppers for almost 20 years on another Mississippi plantation. Right? Now, in 1961, she went in for some minor surgery, and she left the hospital with a hysterectomy without her permission. It was that whole part of things of keeping the growth of the black population down. And this, after all that she'd gone through, living in poverty and being a sharecropper and all that kind of stuff, she said, that's it, I'm done. And so she became a civil rights activist. She was involved in black voting rights, some of those sit-ins with the SNCC, whatever it was. She worked on integrating the delegations from Mississippi to the Democratic National Convention. That was a big step forward, took a lot of work. And for black women candidates, she actually ran for the House of Representatives one year. Now, for the last 10 years of her life, she launched a Freedom Farm Collective that created a black-owned farm collective, a co-op store, boutique, and selling enterprise. She also ensured that 200 low-income housing units were built in the town where she lived in Mississippi. All right? Fannie Lou Hamer followed her vision of what life could be if we loved our neighbor as ourselves. She took action with her love. Right? Now, I'd like to share with you 2 more spiritual truths that would reinforce why it is important to live our lives with love as we evolve. The first is the spiritual truth of oneness. We've talked about this, and since we are all part of that one life that is God, whatever we are doing to someone else, we are doing to ourselves. We're doing to a part of ourselves. So that is one reason to love our neighbor as ourselves, right? Because they're a part of us. The second spiritual truth we don't talk about quite so much in Science of Mind is karma. Right? So what goes around comes around. Right? This is a spiritual law that acts impartially. Whether we know it or not, it's always there in the background. The consequences of our actions are the direct consequences. Right? Consequences of sin are the consequences of our action. Now, there's a story about when Jesus was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane in the book of Matthew 26. When the high priest's servants came to seize Jesus in the garden, and he had been betrayed there by Judas, one of his followers drew his sword and he slashed at a servant and actually cut his ear, one of the soldiers. And so he was going to defend his leader, of course. And what does Jesus say? He said, "Put up your sword. All who take the sword die by the sword." Jesus told to live by love, not by fighting. Right? He was the ultimate teacher of love. Reverend Dr. David Ault has written the Daily Meditations in the Science of Mind magazine this month. And on Friday, his meditation was called Karma. And besides being a minister and a New Thought musician, fabulous musician, David Ault has been changing many lives with the Kaleidoscope Children's Foundation that he founded about 15 years ago. Every year now, they serve about 1,000 children around the world in Cambodia, 2 locations in India, and also Guatemala. So Dr. Ault trusts karma to act as a spiritual law so he can focus on following his vision and doing what makes a difference. And this is a quote from his meditation that day. "Understand that the work you are called to do will be most effective when you refrain from fighting against a decaying system and instead bring vision, equality, and dignity into the arena of systemic issues. Live from the understanding of infinite solutions, not finite warring. This is the spiritual world, the infinite solutions, not the physical world that has all of its limitations. Feed those who need feeding. Assist those who need assistance in whatever ways you are called upon. But do it from vision and not by fighting against something. Right? Do it from vision and not by fighting against something. You never have to intermediate on behalf of a self-regulating universe. That's the karma going on, right? It needs no understudy. Karma never misses a performance. Vision will sustain you. It will energize your efforts. So it comes from that vision of love, of oneness in everything that he does. Now, in honor of Pride Month, I would like to share with you one final story about a man who dared to live his life true to his vision of love. William, or Billy Haynes, was a popular and handsome silent movie star in the 1920s who actually successfully made the transition to talkies with a little bit of coaching. But by 1930, this matinee idol was America's top box office draw and openly gay. In 1930, the Motion Picture Production Code set up some strict morality rules and guidelines. So Billy Haynes had lived with his life partner Jimmy Shields for about 6 years by then. And they regularly attended the Hollywood premieres and parties together. They were a couple. They were in love. Life was good. Now, Haynes worked for the MGM mogul Louis B. Mayer, who issued an ultimatum, like moguls do. Billy Haynes either had to break up with Jimmy Shields and agree to a studio-arranged lavender marriage, they called it, or lose his career. So, Haynes chose love over his career. and quit working for MGM. Now, at the time, he thought he was such a big star that he would easily be able to get some other studio to take him in. And what he found was there was a few, but they were kind of a little low end kind of thing, and it wasn't really a good career for him anymore. So God provided. Serendipitously, at the same time, Joan Crawford had been to visit his home with Jimmy Shields, and she loved how they had decorated the place. And so she asked him to come over and decorate her beautiful mansion. And then so did one other Hollywood person after another. So she ended up having all of these big name clients. And he set up this fabulous decorating business that continued to operate until his death in 1977. He was asked to come back and be in Sunset Boulevard with a kind of a cameo. But he said, I love being decorating, and I don't have to do all that studio stuff. And so, no, thank you. He was cared for. He stood up for love, and Spirit supported him, right? So we have to do that. When we're clean within ourselves, we're supported by Spirit, right? Now, all of us have a soul's calling to express love in all we do. It is how we express who we truly are, a manifestation of God's love in all that we are and all that we do. And so we're grateful that this is the currency of the universe, love. Let's take this to prayer. As I turn within, I sense the power and presence of the One, the infinite, omnipresence, the omniscient life force that has created all that is, that unites all people and all things as one. Everywhere I look, I see God in everything. I see the divine love of God expressing as wholeness, as peace, as joy, as beauty, of acts of loving kindness. I sense the power and presence of the divine within me. It is flowing in me, through me, around me, and as me. I live and move in harmony with all of the universe. We are one. I allow divine love to be my soul's call. I release any fear that I am not enough, any fear that God's love is not enough to guide me and support me through any and every situation. My vision is clear, illuminated by divine light and love. I follow my soul's call. My heart is filled by love. Courageously, I allow divine love to move through me, to evolve my consciousness to higher and higher levels. I act with love and faith, doing what is mine to do. All that I require is provided. My fellow travelers and I share love and joy, wonder and gratitude for the blessings that fill our lives so overflowing. I give gratitude for the fathers that have made it possible for me to be here, and each person that is here. I give gratitude for the people that have dared to stand up and live their life from love, even when it looked like it might not be the best path. But it proves that that divine love is the highest path forward. I experience health in my body, mind, and spirit as a divine creation. I experience loving and harmonious relationships in my work and play and my spiritual community. Divine love and divine right action fill my days with happiness and joy. I am loving and loved. All is good. Thank you, Father, Mother God. I let go and let the law of God manifest the spiritual truth right here and right now. And together we say, And so it is.